Let's speak to our old friend Grant Harrold, former royal butler, a royal commentator, a man who I think we introduced to the world many, many moons ago, and who now sort of straddles the media world with great alacrity. Grant, a very good morning to you. Welcome back.
Good morning, sir.
I feel as though it's the return of the prodigal son. I mean, every time I look up, you're on Piers Morgan's show, you're on Jeremy Kyle's show. I'm going, what happened to us? How is he never talking to us?
I'm back where I started.
Excellent, top man. Listen, there's lots to talk about. Let's kick it off first of all with the coronation, I should say, with Charles and Camilla. She will now lose the Queen Consort title, and it's all looking a bit green. But I think it's going to be a great occasion, isn't it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Mike. And as you're probably aware, a lot of people didn't understand that Queen Consort was obviously that is the title, but she will be known as the Queen because, like, historically with all our kings, the wives have always been known as the Queen. So this wasn't a surprise. And as you mentioned with the official invitation that's now been released, it's very green. In fact, to my mind, it very much, well, it does. It reflects a lot of Highgrove, which is, where I was a butler. And the Green Man features in the invitation, which historically is, I suppose, a protector in the Roman terms, the protector of the gardens. And it's quite interesting to see that's on the invitation. It very much reflects both of them, because I think what people might not realise is the king is a keen gardener, but so is the Queen. They both love their gardens.
Yes, indeed they do. And obviously, there's sort of two big controversies so far. Is Joe Biden suggesting that he's not going to turn up? Nobody seems too bothered about that. You're not even sure that you would know where he was if he did come. But Harry and Meghan, of course, the other big question mark. What are you hearing about whether they're going to be in attendance?
Oh, I've got no kind of inside information. I think the reality is that I'm imagining that they will be invited. It's such a tricky one, Mike, because...
Yes. We think they have been invited, but we're not sure whether they've accepted it.
This is the tricky part, because I think the biggest fear for the household is that if they go, will they just be quiet and go along as guests and not make a kind of scene, if you like? And I don't think they will. I really don't think they will. But the problem is it won't overshadow it, because it's going to be a talking point, because if they are there, we're all going to be watching to see what they do, how they react, how they behave. I think of course it's right that especially he's invited as the son, but with everything that's happened recently, it's going to leave, can I say, a bit of a bad taste in everyone's mouths, because it's obviously been not the best last few months. But once again, as I heard you say earlier on, the thing about the royal family is they do, despite whatever happens, they pull together and they kind of carry on as they're good at doing that, trying to put on a brave face and keep smiling and getting on with the job of being royal. Well,
they do, but a couple of big stories of late about both Harry and Meghan. Meghan's going to be accepting some kind of award around about the time of the coronation. Harry is under scrutiny right now in America because of his book, The Spare, in which he catalogued all the drug use that he was getting himself involved in, and suggestions that he's still taking some drugs in one way, shape or form. But he talks about cannabis, cocaine, magic mushrooms, also some of those rather strange hallucinogenic Amazonian plants called ayahuasca, I think it is. Some people now in America saying, was he entirely honest with the authorities when he applied for his residency permit for California? Because if he wasn't, he could be in a bit of trouble. And this morning we learned that supposedly he did tell them the truth.
This is the thing, with this book, he's obviously very much trying to tell the world about his life in every detail, and the dangerous part is, Mike, innocently or not, he's saying things which, it's not just about the drug taking, of course that's quite serious, but it's the other aspects of what he's talked about. And the one thing about, from my point of view, as you know, Mike, over the years working for the royal family, as you know, I do a lot of media interviews, but I still, there's things that always remain private. I was lucky enough to be in a very, I feel really honoured to have had the position I had. He was a member of the royal family, a senior member of the royal family, and I think what I sometimes find difficult is that there's things that he talks about, and it just doesn't make sense, Mike, because I knew him really well, and what a great guy he was, and how close he was to his family. And of course, as you know, there's many reasons as to why this has happened, and I just find it really sad. And I think with the things that he's talking about, they are going to come back and haunt him in some shape or form, including the talk about taking the drugs. Of course, in the States, there's certain things that obviously, I'm not an expert in this, but there's certain drugs over there obviously allowed compared to others. But as you mentioned, you've got to declare, when you go out there. We all know how strict it is when you go there, for good reasons. So it's not really wise. And I think what worries me sometimes is I've always said this with certain members of the royal family, it's worrying the people that advise them, because, you know, I don't really understand where the logic comes from, but that's just my personal view.
Yeah, I think the problem with Harry's drug use as well is that they tolerate, for example, marijuana in certain states like California. It's not illegal anymore to smoke it. But I think if you're a foreign national, you are treated differently, particularly if you're applying for a permit to live there as a resident. And I think that's where he might have a problem, because regardless of what he may or may not have declared, he might have said it was all in the past, which is a different thing from saying it's now in the present, because in federal law, which is what covers the whole country, you know, smoking marijuana is still illegal.
And this is where it's going to be interesting to see what they do about it, because I don't think they're not going to let this go. You know, I think what some people think is that the royal family are always going to think, oh, maybe certain members of the royal family get away with things. They don't. I mean, Mike, you probably know as well over the years, I even know certain members of the royal family that have been given speeding fines and things. You know, they're not above the law. Technically speaking, a late queen and now a king are technically, according to the monarchy website, are above the law. But of course, they follow the laws and the rules, and likewise, if they do something wrong, they answer for it. And this is something that the whole family are aware of. So I think the fact that they're now in another country, there's rules and laws around that country, and it's important that they follow them, and it'll be interesting to see if something is done. The fact they've talked about this, if the authorities decide to do something, it's going to be interesting to see how this is handled, because, you know, it's one thing everything that's taking place at the moment, but it's another if there's potentially we're going to have a member of the royal family getting arrested next. It's not ideal. Well,
I mean, you wonder whether if he's not going to get arrested, he's going to get kicked out of America, in which case he'll have to come back here.
Well, that'll be the next problem. He'll come back, and obviously Frogmore, from what I understand, is now no longer. Well, obviously he's handing that back, or handed it back, and I think, you know, if he comes back, Mike, this is the question people keep saying to me: do you think he can come back? And I used to always say yes, but as time goes on and more damage, I say damage, I mean, you know, with more that comes out, I don't really see how it's possible. I think with all families, when you have serious fallouts, it's never ever the same. I think everybody would agree with that, and I don't think, for his point of view, I don't see how it could be the same. It would take a lot.
Well, it's already different, isn't it? I mean, he was back here just recently, and his father and his brother were too busy, they said, to see him. I think I'd be too busy to see him as well.
I think the bit that's worrying, and this is what I took from that, is that with everything that's come out, I suppose as part of his father and brother that are worried that if they do speak to him or say anything, how do they know that's not going to be discussed?
I mean, we were talking about Jeremy Kyle earlier. I mean, he told me that when he was in Windsor that day when they did the sort of so-called impromptu walkabout, the Fab Four, you know, Harry and Meghan and William and Kate, they were very closely followed by a Netflix camera crew who had to be warned off by William's people to say, no, you're not filming this for Netflix, get lost. You know, so you'd always worry, wouldn't you, that as soon as he leaves the room, he's on the phone to Netflix or to some journalist telling them what's just happened.
Do you know, that's sad, Mike? I hadn't heard that, and this is the sad part. You know, when I saw those images, Mike, I was excited. I thought maybe this is a possibility of them sorting things out, you know, reconciling and actually going forward. And but obviously you saying that, I heard other things about, you know, about there was obviously worries about conversation things, and hearing that, this is what I mean. How do you come back from that? And that's the problem. When you've got a film crew following you around, you know, almost 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, they're all family. You know, yes, they've done documentaries, yes, they've done different TV things, but they're always controlled by the palace, and this is outside their control. So I think Prince William would be quite right to kind of have his people kind of say, no, this isn't on, but if you turn it round, I don't know, and this is how I see it when you hear these kind of things, how would you like it if it was on the other foot, if it was William and Catherine that were out there doing a documentary and filming what was going on around, you know what I mean? There's always, you can think of that side as well. So I think, as I said to you, the whole thing's, I just still find it really sad. And again, Mike, you probably remember back in the day, I kept saying, I'm sure it's a mistake. I'm sure they haven't fallen out. And now it's very clear that this is a relationship that's
I'm afraid,
never going to be
you're
fixed.
a much nicer person than me, Grant, because I had the same conversation on the day that it happened, when that walkabout happened with Vanessa Feltz, and we did a show together, and she said, oh, this is the beginning of some kind of rapprochement, and it's going to be much better now from now on. Why can't we just accept that? And I said, well, because knowing them as I do, and knowing, I'm afraid, Meghan Markle and the way she has behaved in the past and the way Harry is kind of manipulated by her, I don't see this as anything other than, you know, another sort of example of their trying to take advantage of something. And that's why I believe they will want to come to the coronation, because without the royal family connection, they're just another pair of two-bit celebrities in Hollywood.
Do you know, mate, I actually saw that show that you did, Vanessa, and I also know, like you said, it was almost kind of, I don't want to say hijacking, but I remember the nation were upset. I remember how upset you were. I remember watching Vanessa, seeing how upset everybody was, genuinely upset, and everybody was supporting and rallying around the royal family. And, you know, and as I said, when we saw them together, I was being hopeful, you know, kind of thinking it'd be so wonderful for our late Queen if this could be resolved. And Mike, I said recently in an interview that, with, you know, I'm like everybody, I miss our late Queen, but I'm glad she's not around to see what's all taken place since, because I think it would break her heart. I don't think there's any question on that, because she adored her grandson, she adores her family, and I think it would have really broken her heart more with what's taken place since she's gone. I'm sure she's watching from somewhere, probably thinking, I'm glad I'm not involved in it anymore.
Yes, recollections may differ. One of the greatest phrases ever uttered by somebody who knew about diplomacy and who absolutely knew how to deal with things. But brilliant. Great to see you, Grant. Thank you very much indeed. Have a great rest of the week. Grant Harrold, former royal butler, royal commentator, knew Prince Harry, of course, when he was sensible, or at least when he was less mad. The problem for Harry now is he's taken so many drugs, he's admitted to taking so many drugs, that it may well be that his US visa gets revoked. Wouldn't that be something? But we don't want him back here, do we?